There are so many different routes to finding, building your capacity and just becoming a better leader. When I have pushed myself to be a better learner, it's made me a more thoughtful and compassionate leader.
Very happy to introduce a longtime friend and colleague, Jihan. She is currently the Director of Curriculum and Learning at Zurich International School. And over the past probably, 28, I don't want to age you too much, Ji, but maybe 27, 28 years, she has been a principal, a curriculum coordinator, a classroom teacher, a consultant, many, many hats that she's worn, and always been a very strong member of our international schools community for many, many years. When we get to have her at the PTC, she has taught many courses for us, and mostly we remember her for her work on instructional supervision and evaluation and creating an effective school. And again, she's always been a huge contributor to our community. We were recalling this morning as we were preparing for you that the first time that I knew of, that she got an opportunity to work with us as a facilitator was when she was herself a participant, and we invited her to teach a module of our assessment course. So we were remembering those moments together, and she's just gone on from strength to strength from there. Ji?
So thank you. It's such a delight to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I love seeing all the little squares, so thanks to Zoom for creating this. Before I start, I want to say thank you to Bambi, Zach, and Sky, and the entire PTC team. You've done a tremendous effort, and you've let us be the recipient of some amazing pearls. I, like Kelly, miss being with you so much, and so being part of these pearls makes me feel like I'm with you. So yeah, with that, I will start. Oops, sorry. Oops, no, technical difficulty. Hold on. Sorry, I have to share my screen. All right, here we go. Okay, a few clicks here, share screen. Okay, there we go. All right, does everyone see that? Yes? Okay, perfect. Okay, so when I was preparing my presentation, I came across a different kind of pearl, what I call the growing pearl. And I got really inspired by the idea of a pearl that continues to grow. So I wanted to share about how leadership and growth are synonymous. And I think one of the biggest responsibilities as leaders is to promote this idea of growth. So my pearl today is summed up by this quote from Linda Fisher Thornton. She writes a beautiful book about ethical leadership. And it's called, at best, leadership is not an event, it's a building endeavor, a process of human growth and development. So in addition to eating lots of spicy Korean food, one of my huge passions is hiking. And I'm so fortunate to live in this beautiful country of Switzerland. It offers over 72,000 kilometers of hiking trails. And I've noticed that when I hike, I've learned so many lessons about myself and leadership. So I want to share some of them with you, and along with them a few strategies as well, I hope. So when you're hiking, you want to have a general layout of the land. So usually you have a map like this, and this map usually helps you map out the route that you're going to take. This is one of the mountains near Zurich that I often go to, called Flumserberg. My growth journey and routes have been mapped out by these 6 ideas: giving, reflection, opportunity, wonder, teams, and health. And so I'm going to share a few ideas about that. So in Switzerland, when you're hiking, you'll see lots of these fountains around. They're just dotted around the routes, and they're free. You don't have to pay for them, and they provide hikers with essential elements of water, which is really necessary. And Adam Grant, in his book, Give and Take, talks about that organizations with givers are just better. And then when we promote the success of others, we promote our own success. And I think giving can come in many forms. We can give through generosity of spirit by presuming positive intent, which I think we have to make a conscious effort about. We can give of our time through feedback and appreciation. And we can also be generous to ourselves by saying, you know what, I don't know the answers all the time. And I found that giving gratitude is a huge benefit that I've had as a leader. And I think that leaders not only have to give gratitude by themselves, but I think they should create an environment where everyone's empowered to be able to give instead of take. So one of the simple strategies, but effective strategies that I've used in order to allow people to have a voice in giving is this idea of a gratitude bucket. You just take any kind of bucket or a pail and you put it in a common area and you just invite people to put messages of gratitude or thoughtfulness. And at first, when you put the bucket out, nobody really wants to put anything in it because they're a little bit afraid. But it starts getting full, and then once a week or so, we pull out some messages and we share. And I love this idea that everyone can give or get gratitude, and it's particularly helpful because people who don't necessarily speak up, it's enough time for them to get appreciated or show appreciation. Originally, when we started this idea, it was only meant for teachers, but then a student asked if they could put something in the gratitude bucket. So of course we did that. And then it kind of became a community builder. So yeah, we found it really useful. And I hope if you haven't already done it, you might have, you would find something to do like this. This is not my idea. I have to credit Julie Ryan, a wonderful friend and colleague from the PTC. She gave me this idea many years ago, and I've always used it, and it's really powerful. So the second idea is reflection. When I go hiking, I usually see these benches that you see, and usually I just walk right by them because I think these are for people who need rest. And I think leadership is like that. We're always so fixated on getting somewhere, on getting to the summit. We don't really take a moment to sit and just reflect. So recently when I went on a hike, I actually sat on one of these benches. And what I found was when I sat on the bench and I looked out, I saw this amazing perspective of the mountain that I'd never seen before. And I think that's so helpful that when leaders, we talk about reflection, but we don't actually do it with consequence. And so this idea of reflecting, not just reflecting for no purpose, but I think reflecting on successes and reflecting on failures. The two words I've used the most and the most beneficial as a leader when I reflect is thank you and I'm sorry. So those are kind of, really important for me in building that relationship. When I try to celebrate success, one thing we do when we celebrate success is everybody has a weekly newsletter. We have a section there that's always there called What Went Well. And this is a place where people can just share. It's not curated, just people throw, these are the things that are going well this weekend. What I love about this is it's almost always about student learning, and it tells us that we're having an impact. This is a section that everybody says they look at most in the newsletter. So it's not just leaders who put stuff on here, but teachers as well. And sometimes it's personal. They put things like I've learned how to do my few bars on the guitar. So it's really exciting. The opposite idea of celebrating failure is a bit counterintuitive. Nobody wants to really talk about things that don't go well, but we know that when we reflect on things that don't go well, it really does help push our learning. So we did a failure festival instead of the grade 10 mission statement a couple of years ago, and it was very powerful. There are lots of ways you can do a failure festival, and in the link, it'll show you some of the ideas of how to run one. But most important when you do a failure festival is you have to make sure that it's a safe place to learn. So those are two ideas, and I hope that they're useful to you. So we have this idea of obstacles and opportunities. When I go on a hike, sometimes my path is recently it was blocked by a big pile of logs, and I was forced to take an alternative route. And even though it's really frustrating, the alternative route is like hard to find and you can't see the path. In the end, if you take that alternative route, it can lead you to another spectacular place that's usually better than the place that you were at. Our school has been talking about doing performance assessments at the end of the year ad infinitum, and we just never did it. There was always an excuse not to do it. And because of COVID and home learning, we were forced to push ourselves into a performance-based learning for the end of the year. And lo and behold, the students fed back that that was the best year of assessment at the end of the year. So we always have obstacles, and believe you me, lately we've had many, but if you can try to look for the opportunities, it really does bring a lot of rich learning. So here's an idea of wonder. When I go hiking, sometimes the path kind of veers off into two directions. And when I would come upon one of these junctions before, I'd kind of panic going, oh my gosh, which road is the right one and which is going to get me to my destination? But I've learned in hiking at least that when there's no sign here, it means that both of the roads are going to get you to where you want to be. It just, the routes are different. And so now instead of panicking when I see a junction like this, I kind of use the time to wonder what's going to happen and what I'm going to see on that route. And it makes the hiking journey so much more enjoyable. One of my favorite books is called The Wise Woman and Her Secrets. And it's a beautiful tale about how this idea of wondering really helps us find some wisdom. And I think as leaders, we really need to find space for just wondering. We don't do that often enough. We talk about it with the young kids, but as adults, we are too busy to wonder. And one of the ways that I've tried to find and help find a place of wonder is before every staff meeting or meeting, and the key is I do it almost every time, even if it's for 5 minutes, I use the connections protocol. And all you have to do is just allow some space for people to share a question or an insight. It doesn't require any response. We're not expected to find the answer. It's just a time of sharing. And it also is a bridge to help people come from where they were to now, and especially in these busy times. So the connections protocol is really one of my favorite strategies to promote wondering. When you're walking across the hiking terrain, it's sometimes a little bit uneven and it's really hard to get from A to B. And at least in Switzerland and Austria, they have these wooden road bridges that really help the hiker get there without too much difficulty. And I feel that teams and team tools are like bridges in our school. I want to take a moment right now to give a shout out to the middle level leaders. They're the unsung heroes of our schools. Without them, we could do what we do, but it would be so much more difficult. So as a principal, I think it's imperative, and we have to make a conscious effort to really foster not only team and teamwork, but team tools. And two of the biggest and most effective team tools that we've used are this idea of norms and protocols. But it's not just enough to have them, you have to really build an understanding and shared understanding and a consistent use of them. So we've adopted the meeting norms from the ILC, but it wasn't enough to say, these are our norms. What we found really helpful is we've created a rubric about what does step up, make room, assume good intent, and seek wisdom look like. And that really helped us to build a shared understanding. Protocols, you know, I'm a big fan of. It provides a way of structuring the dialogue. But my favorite thing about protocols is that it provides the equity of voice. When I say equity, I don't mean everybody gets to speak equally. I mean, when people need and want to speak up, it gives them that possibility. So though when you want to do things like protocols and norms, I do believe it's helpful that the team leaders have some specific training, because it's not always intuitive to use the protocol. So I would strongly advocate for doing some kind of professional development with that. And my last idea in this idea of growth is health. We've been talking and thinking a lot about it recently. When you're hiking, if you don't have strong health, you're not going to get very far. When I go hiking now, I always map out before I start on the route where I'm going to kind of rest or grab a cup of coffee. Fortunately, in Switzerland, there's always a mountain hut that gives that coffee or a cappuccino. Being a young and inexperienced leader at the beginning, I never really thought about the consequence of my health on others. And I think as leaders, it's a huge responsibility for us to role model health. We can talk about well-being and wellness all we want, but if people don't see us taking care of our health, they don't feel, I think it's okay for them to do that, like take a break or eat lunch or anything like that. I was trying to think of a strategy about health, and I'm going to be honest here. I'm not always so good at it. There are times when I'm really good about taking care of myself, and there are times when I'm just not okay. And that's the only strategy that I know works for me is I have this idea of a critical friend. We have critical friends for many, many things, but for me, I need one to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. And it can come in the form of a simple question, like, have you had your lunch today? One of the silver linings of the COVID is that we've been working from home, and I actually eat lunch, which is a phenomenon that I think shouldn't only be because we're at home. So my journey of hiking and leadership has always been a process of growth. And every single pearl that we've heard over the past 18 days shows that there are so many different routes to finding, building your capacity and just becoming a better leader. When I have pushed myself to be a better learner, it's made me a more thoughtful and compassionate leader. I am so grateful to this PTC community for being able to be part of your stories of growth. And I'm looking forward to hearing more pearls of growth from all of you in the future. Thanks.
So, G, I'm pretty sure that everybody on the call is feeling like I am, that you really created a classic for us that we're going to come back to many, many times. Thumbs up, everybody, correct? Yay? Because, you have managed to, and, G was worried about going last. Little does she know what she has managed to create here for us. And we can see that more often than any other day, we've seen people writing and, trying to do. I want to remind you all that you do have access to everything, that PowerPoint slide with the slides and all the resources, clicking through to those in the document where we've been keeping everything. So I know many of you were trying to write and, figure out, oh, I want to get that. I wanted to take that idea. And that is kind of quintessentially what the PTC set out to do, is say, how do you take all the stuff you've learned and do it? And what does it look like when you're doing it? And how do you continue on that journey? Also, just want to, we're all been sitting in our rooms or places. I know I'm stuffed in a little corner where the internet's good, and I, jerry-rigged a stage behind me. My room doesn't usually look like this. So having all the visions of Switzerland on that wonderful hike, it's just going to be forever, I think, embedded with this notion of leadership and growth. So I just want to really thank you for that, and I think others are as well. It's a really helpful towards the end of our time together. The one question, and everybody's kind of answering it for themselves in here. We have a question about what a great reminder for a gratitude bucket. Does anybody have an effective technological tool to make this happen? I think they're all answering, you guys are all answering it amongst yourselves. We have Padlets, we have other ways. But G, do you have anything that, I know your school was like the rest of online?
The Padlet was one, but what we did is at the end of the year, we created a video. It takes a little bit more time, but it's so powerful. We thought the teachers, we wanted to create a video for the students, but funnily enough, the students created a video for the teachers. So we had all this love going on, but yeah, videos are really powerful because you can see it over and over again, and you just feel like the person's with you. I mean, luckily we were blessed with the technology that we can do it, but every phone now can take a short video. So I'm a big fan of using videos if you can. Yeah. Videos really work. I mean, in the real world, like when we get back on campus, I actually believe strongly in the power of the real bucket, because maybe it's my 20th century brain or something in mind, but doing something physical like that is really exciting. But videos, we've used so many of them, and I found them really helpful.
Yeah, that's good. And now, because we now have our kids kind of up to snuff, being able to do those things without having to learn how to use the tool, it starts to become more effective. So that's really useful. You gave us some really good practical examples, particularly in the middle section there when, we're talking about obstacles and the notion that we have to go around those obstacles. As you move into this next school year, what are you seeing as a looming obstacle that might become an opportunity?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest obstacles right now for all artists is this idea of ambiguity. Nobody seems to know what's going to happen next. And as schools, one of the ironic things that we like to do a lot is plan. So we're always making strategic plans and action plans. And I like plans because they give some structure and they keep you kind of grounded. But we really need to be not just having a plan. That's not going to work. We can't do business as usual. We have to be kind of get ready to prepare. But if you get stuck in saying, we're going to do this, you're going to have to redo everything. And I think that's going to be our biggest challenge. I like to be a bit of a rebel in the sense of, not everything has to be set in stone. I think you can have your guiding principles, you can have, you want to keep student learning at the focus. And one of the pillars we're talking about, when you have to make decisions, making that road, you have to say, is this going to be good for kids? And so I do think that struggling with ambiguity is going to be a huge problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and that leads me to thinking about there's been lots of conversation, rightfully, about as we are moving in and out of hybrids, and we don't really know. You do need some kind of a plan, because, and it can't be, plan A doesn't work, there's no plan B, so plan B becomes, we better hope that plan A works, that kind of thing. So that we do have to do something about it, because we're leaders and we have to be responsible to that notion. But in the area of curriculum, and since that's the area that you are right now in your many iterations that you've had in schools, what are some of the curriculum related issues that you are pretty sure are going to be in front of you? Questions like what's worth learning now that we're in this circumstance, or is it the what, the whether, the how of the curriculum that you think is most?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, and sometimes it goes against the grain of some of the stuff that we do, like with standards and things. I've always been a fan of less is more. I believe that schools are trying to do too much. We try to do too much. And I think that we have to kind of be a lot more disciplined about trying to figure out what is that, like that ice mat kind of idea. So I think we're going to have to do a lot of work on getting a lot of conversations about what are the 3 or 4 things that we have to talk about from a standards point of view. Maybe not 3, but quite a few. But the other thing that I've always been an advocate about is this idea of character or dispositions. We talk about them being important. In our school, we have concepts, competency, and character. They're all on the same line, but somehow the competencies are always at the top. And I think now, as we go into these uncertain times, we've heard time and time again how important dispositions are. And I think, if anything, if push comes to shove, we've got to put that idea of dispositions and being giving our students the ability to kind of explore and grow through that. Because without those dispositions, they're not going to be able to succeed very well in the future, and as well as us as well.
Yes, and the growing of dispositions requires opportunities and scenarios in which you can practice in them and fail at them.
Yes.
And those set of circumstances, if you're online or you're in hybrid, have now, I don't want to say that they're less, but they are different. So if you want to test my ability to be patient or kind or courteous, the circumstances now around that. So crafting, what does that look like when we're not in the standard place called school? I just want to give a couple of other thoughts to that. I just yesterday read, some of you follow Dylan Williams' work, and he wrote a short, I don't know what you call it, whether it was a blog or whatever it was. He's been serving on the UK Council for the National Curriculum, whatever that's called. I'm sure I've got all the words wrong. But he gave this same sentiment again, that, even though he sat on a council that approved having this really content-heavy curriculum, his advice was, get rid of some of that stuff. And we have one of those terms in the PTC that we use when we're talking about the curriculum and how do we analyze it and implement it and monitor it. And it's called organized abandonment, like, get rid of that stuff. And then what are the models that we use? How do we actually do that? All right. Well, we have come to the close of your Pearl. It's been a very rich one, and thank you so much, G, for your openness and your willingness and the great set of strategies that you do have. I know there are going to be lots of people who want to follow up with you and pick your brain a little bit more. And hopefully next year, when we're all back together in person, we'll be able to explore even further. So thank you, thank you, thank you.